This afternoon, we're going to get started on a really exciting activity called literature circles. You're going to be getting into groups.
What is the setting of a story?
Okay, I applied for my grants because I saw it as a great opportunity to utilize more materials for my students in the classroom. I have won 5 grants for the district. I've applied for fiction grants, nonfiction grants, chapter book grants that I've utilized for reading in my classroom. Okay. One grant that I won that I started today with my students is a literature circles grant. And I purchased groups of about 5 to 6 books per story, and students divide off into groups. And they're all fiction and they're high interest, so the students love to read them. And they learn to work together, reading books, discussing books, and completing activities for them. I think other teachers should apply for these grants because they're great opportunities to get more resources and more materials for your students to be able to have and use in the classroom.
Okay, I applied for a grant for math manipulatives for our 4th grade, all the 4th grades. The reason I applied for it is we were struggling with figuring out comparisons for fractions, and there was something that I saw that I thought would be working out really well that they can manipulate to make the comparison. It benefited mine and all the rest of the classrooms because they were able to get a hands-on manipulative that could show them like denominators, like equivalent fractions. And also, I also had in that grant something that would help them with angles when we get into geometry.
So the first grant that I initially wrote was for books because it was a literacy grant. So it was using picture books to teach notice and note. And then when I received the grant, I was like, wow, that really wasn't that difficult. And then since then, in 2016, I have written 13 grants and been awarded close to $7,000. So then it just kind of became an addiction of like writing grants and getting cool things for my classroom. So the grants, since I've written so many, have benefited my classroom in so many ways. Being a language arts teacher, I love reading and I want to instill that love of reading in my students. And it's hard when their tastes keep changing and different, novels are popular, different things come out. I have 3 children of my own, so it's hard in purchasing those things out of my own fund. Applying for the grants really gives me an opportunity to add things to my classroom that I normally wouldn't have the opportunity to do so. And not only with books, but then creative ways to display them. For grants, I've come up with kind of a theme for each of them. So like my first grant I mentioned was with picture books, and it was only about $200. The last grant that I wrote this fall was close to $1,000, and it was The Book is Better Than the Movie. So it was all books that movies have been based on to get the kids excited about reading and not just like watching TV or being on their phones or devices. And so then I have a whole display set up in my classroom. So I think other teachers should apply for this upcoming grant and then grants in general offered by like Central Education Foundation, because honestly they are so easy. So if you're ever thinking like, oh, I would love to do this, but like that's way too much money, or where would this come from? There's so many things you could do. My students are still benefiting from that. So it's things, if you write a good grant, it's things that don't go away and that future students will benefit from in years to come, and then you're saving money and then still doing exciting, innovative things in your classroom.
So I applied for the Lake Central Foundation grants because I wanted to give our students a different outlook and resources to some of the games or abilities that maybe aren't provided through just what our schools have in our budget. The grant benefited every single classroom and grade level that I have, which is kindergarten through 4th grade. And it allows them to integrate other subjects such as geography. I also use math. We also talk about how many steps it would take to get to those international places. So they're also allowed to function at their skill level. And so we use different size balls, or we use rebounds. And so we received some international games equipment, which is what I recently started. So we did the map that's behind me, as well as our items for tjoekbal, which is from Sweden, and then cricket, which is from England.